Now let's get to understand the vocabulary that we're going to be using in this course to help us understand what it means to be an immigrant in this country. So the first vocabulary word we need to come to terms with is migration. Okay? Because after all, if you take a look at this is immigration in the United States, that term migration is part of immigration. So the beginning of the immigration process is a decision by an individual or a family to migrate. So migration, that's very important. That is of movement from one place to another. So as we will be reading in the required textbooks in the United States, we take migration largely for granted. But people are constantly migrating, okay? It is a phenomenon that has been taking place since the original inhabitants of this land have existed and taught us how to appreciate the earth. People since time immemorial have moved across this turtle's back from desert to plains, from rivers to coastlines for economic survival. Today, people move from city to city or region to region searching for economic existence. And that's the key, economic existence. So when we take a look at migration, again, that's a process. It is a decision made by an individual or a family to migrate. And usually it's because of economics. So when migration or a movement of population occurs and a people cross a political boundary that's created by modern nation states, it's called by a different name. Now that term becomes immigration. Okay? Some of you have perhaps heard emigration. Immigration. But at the basic level, it is still migration. But what makes immigration different, of course, is that you're leaving one country and entering another country. Hence, that migration gets a political statement. It's emigration because you're leaving a country, immigration because you're entering a country. So as we're going to learn in this course, emigration and immigration are collective terms. Individuals who leave one country are known as immigrants, and when they enter a new country, they become immigrants. Now, why are the people migrating in the first place? Because they are searching for opportunities to continue their economic existence. People are constantly searching for economic survival. And most often, people want to make sure that they can achieve a subsistence level that guarantees that their families will be fed, clothed, and sheltered. So in this way, we can appreciate that throughout human history, people have migrated throughout the world in search of a decent human experience. Okay? Now, the next one, very, very important, is formation and control of labor forces. Very key here to the class. It is important to understand that wherever there are economic systems that have been established, labor forces are required to create the infrastructure that facilitates the exchange of goods and services in that market. So consequently, history reveals that systems are constantly looking to form and control labor forces so as to create markets, as well as build the monumental architecture that's designed to enhance the exchange of goods and services. So throughout history, we witness the formation and control of labor forces in order to facilitate the enhancement of economic growth and development. Whether it be organized through voluntary labor agreements, or whether it be organized through enslaved labor agreements, or through contractual forms of labor, systems desire people's skills. Systems desire people's knowledge, experience, assets. It is in this way that systems recruit workers. So workers migrate to areas where their labor is valued, where their labor is required, where their labor is appreciated, where they are recruited to work. So we want to appreciate that throughout the historical development of the United States, there is a constant need to form and control labor forces. So when workers migrate to areas where their skills and their knowledge are in demand, the receiving country creates a process where these recruited workers are going to be contributing to the social order. This means that the receiving country creates laws that allow these migrants chances to become participants in civil society. In other words, the receiving country provides an avenue by which people who arrive to work become active participants in the social order that creates the wealth. In other words, when they are recruited to come to work in the United States, the question becomes citizenship. This is a very important process. Formation and control of labor forces, you're bringing workers, that's called immigration policy. So you're bringing workers. Workers come over here to the United States. They find work. So the question becomes, how does one become a citizen, since after all, they're working in the system? They're working in the system regardless of how they were brought here. They're in the system. They're working. So a person who's working in the system, they're a participant in the creation of the common good. They are working. They are participating in the common good. They're participating in that public arena. They're participating in the market. They're creating the wealth that sustains the general livelihood of the social order. So this discussion brings us to the franchise. To be enfranchised means to be an active participant in the decisions that create the social order. The franchise means that you are part of the decision-making process that gives direction to the social order. So as a worker, when you're recruited to create the wealth of a nation or a system, how are you given the opportunity to become part of the social order? How are you given an opportunity to direct the social order? In this case, how are you enfranchised to give voice to your contributions to the commonwealth? This is what enfranchisement means.